Good to see you again.
Hey, Brian, I'm working on my virtual background. One
No,
moment.
no problem. Hey, there you go. All right.
There, there we go.
Karen, thanks so much for sitting down with us today. I'm going to start just with a little bit of introduction on myself and then pass it to you and let you introduce yourself to everyone. Jump into our conversation. I love this theme today about modernizing, losing the legacy. I feel like nostalgia is kind of top of mind for everybody right now, coming out of Super Bowl weekend and that nostalgic halftime show that we had. Just a lot of fun things to think about in this space. Hey, I'm just way of introduction for everyone. I'm Brian Spencer, Product Marketing Director with Kroger Precision Marketing. Kroger Precision Marketing is the retail media business of Kroger. So our business is designed to help brands close that loop between media exposure and in-store sales. And we do that through a full media ecosystem of on-site and off-site media touchpoints. Happy to be here today with Karen Laker, who is Marketing Director at Elida Beauty. And Elida Beauty is a recent entity born out of Unilever. And Karen, I want to hear more about that, about how Elida was created and what's happened in the past year. But before we go there, would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself, maybe a little bit of your background, your career path, your career journey, and how you got to be in this role of marketing director for this new division?
Yeah, sure. So I started at smaller company as a small consulting company, and then I was doing sort of a startup of startups, so new business ideas and bringing them to market. I went back to business school to learn more and get some of those basics under my belt, and then I found my way to Unilever as an intern and then full time. And I've been at Unilever now for 10 years across local, global brands and different categories. And prior to taking this role, I was leading Talenti marketing right after Talenti was acquired by Unilever. And so I joined Elida Beauty in July, and we're all a very new team, but it's a new business unit at Unilever, like you said, and it includes brands Q-Tips, Caress, Noxzema, Lever, TG Bedhead, and I look after the skincare brand, so Caress, Noxzema, and Lever 2000. And so I've had the experience with small companies and then some big ones, and both with Talenti and with this role, I feel like it's sort of both in a way, some of those like small brand and big brand elements.
That's awesome. So yeah, it sounds like your career path at Unilever has really prepared you for this moment where you're in a position where you're bringing some old brands some new life, and in this position where Elida is coming into the market as a new kind of holding company brand. So is that the right way to kind of think of Elida? Is Elida itself is not a consumer-facing brand; it is a holding company of brands?
Yeah, we describe it as a business unit. So consumers won't see Elida Beauty; they'll see the brands themselves. But yeah, it's a business unit within Unilever.
Okay, I love these kinds of new business units. Where I sit within a grocery store chain that's 139 years old, and I'm working in this retail media business that's just 4 years old, and so it feels very much like some days you come to work and you feel like you're working in a startup, and depending on the project, some days you feel like, oh no, we actually are like this really big old established company. I imagine that it feels a little bit like that at Elida. Do you think of yourselves as like a startup culture, or like you're just part of the Unilever culture?
we're definitely trying to build our own culture, and it's great to have sort of the backbone of Unilever and the training and some of those fundamentals and processes. And then at the same time, really think about how we want to do things differently and picking those places to act differently, and have more of a startup mindset.
That's a lot of fun. It's fun to be like starting something new, um, in an organization like that, an organization that has a lot of resources and a lot of like great momentum, but to be in a role where you can be building out something new. Tell us about just Elida as a team, as a structure. Like, how are you guys? How do you kind of structure yourselves? How are you guys set up there? Realizing that this is still a fairly new entity. You said this was about 1 year ago that Elida was launched.
Yeah, about 1 year. Most of the marketing team started in the back half of last year. So it's still new, and we're still very much shaping it. I think, like, going back to that sort of startup mentality, and how do we almost structure in a way that supports that. I think one is this idea of like no silos, and everyone as a business owner is just sort of a consistent value that we talk about in hiring, we talk about repeatedly. So it's really like that is a key thing of everyone as a business owner and having that holistic understanding. And then things in terms of the structure with um, certain teams kind of owning things end to end in terms of marketing, not breaking marketing up into um, different segments, and then also like connectedness across market research and sales and design, and sort of ensuring that the structure also supports that startup mentality ambition.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So important within a new organization where you're trying to build that culture to make sure there's none of those silos, make sure that there's a lot of great collaboration, communication happening. Well, that sounds great. That sounds exciting. Um, and you guys are looking to kind of build your own kind of subculture within the organization. I think that's really important too. Um, we've certainly found the same thing here at Kroger, where it's like the Kroger mission is something that really resonates with everybody. So like we can hang on to that mission.
Mhm.
Our team within the retail media group can like start to build some of just our own little ways of working, our own little kind of subculture. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. So Alita, your products are in the beauty aisle. Hey, the beauty aisle is a super competitive space. Um, can you just talk about like what are some of those uh, advantages or disadvantages of working with some of these older brands, established brands in a really competitive aisle? Just bring us into like some of those discussions that you guys have about the beauty space and the challenges you face there.
Yeah. I mean, there are pros and cons of having these established brand names, um, that maybe have lost a little relevance. I came from a brand on Talenti that was just focused on awareness. It was really growing smaller, had very, very low awareness. With these brands now, they have high awareness. People know Caress and Noxema, but in a lot of cases, they have memories of campaigns from the 90s or before, and that's what they remember. And so there hasn't been that much energy behind the brands in recent years, so people have memories from decades ago. And so, I mean, it's such an advantage to have high awareness as a brand, to be a household name. But we have to work at evolving the memory structures to a new place for today's consumer.
Yeah, it's neat. So many brands would love to be in that position of already having an established kind of baseline of awareness, but like you said, it can work against you if you feel like the established perception is not where you want it to be as a brand. So how do you, when you think about like how you might need to change perceptions, how are you tapping into that perception and where it stands right now? How are you tapping into like, what is the next generation of beauty buyers? Like, what are they looking for and so on? How do you just kind of keep a pulse on that?
Yeah, I think one is sort of, um, well, deep consumer work. So talking to your consumers again, that's like a basic of marketing, right? But
Right.
that's where you have to start. Who loves the product today? Who loves the brand and who doesn't? And that really gives some good nuggets on where you can go. So that like basic fundamental of talking to people is always a good practice. Um, and then I think, you know, one is meeting people where they are. So the next generation of beauty product buyers, not just saying like Gen Z, because we're not focused on that generation necessarily for these brands, but just like today's beauty buyer, um, like meeting them where they are in terms of where's the conversation happening, what channels are they present, where's their beauty conversation happening now. That's been a really important, valuable thing for us. Um, and then and then understanding sort of what they're looking for in a brand today. What are the relevant product attributes as sort of table stakes for brands today, and making sure you're delivering on those. And then from there, you can build. But I think understanding like where people are and being there a little bit more, and then what are sort of the things that products in these categories have to deliver on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tapping into that mindset, understanding those needs that they have today. I mean, have there been any big kind of pillars that you're landing on, or I suppose it's maybe different for each product in your portfolio, but anything kind of stand out when you think of how people are buying in the category today, even compared to maybe just a few years ago, right? Like we've seen that just across a number of categories that people are buying. Needs have shifted, right? Like we're in a slightly different world than we were 3 years ago. I
Mhm.
mean, have you seen any kind of particular needs or product attributes kind of rise to the top on people's list of concerns or interests?
Yeah, it varies a bit by category, but I think what's really important with these heritage brands is understanding where they come from, and like building from there. So Caress delivers a pretty sensorial, immersive experience. It's pretty complex scents, soft skin feel, affordable price. And that's been true since it was founded. It's still true today, but it needs to come to life in a more relevant way. And so then we look at the channels we tell the story, the packaging, sort of across the six P's of marketing. Um, yeah, so I think that's sort of a recent one. On Noxima's tried and true. Generations have been using it, passing it down. Right now, we're having such a moment of 90s nostalgia, like you were saying at the beginning, and people are looking for sort of retro products in a way. And so I think that's an interesting thing too, of like being grounded in what makes the brand, and sort of then defining what elements to modernize, um, eh, without straying too far from what you actually are.
I love that. And yeah, I'm in the age category now where like all the stuff from the 80s and 90s that's coming back, it's I love it, but I'm also like slightly bothered, like, oh, this is nostalgic now for people. But I get it. I get it. It's
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
it's great. Yeah, when you think about kind of remixing older brands, and so I love pulling forward some of that nostalgia that people have, and just some of those brand truths that are still really foundational for the future. Are there are there new brand qualities that people are looking for? And how do you think about like trying to inject new kind of brand qualities into the product portfolio as you go forward?
Yeah, so like a pretty basic example is you see so many more, and I hate to even say clean label, but there's so many more claims around sulfate free, paraben free, testing, whatever, those safety claims. And in some cases they're important to give some reassurance to consumers. And so I think that's certainly a trend to be aware of, and then to think about how we adapt it for our brands where it does or doesn't make sense. But I also think about, so Bob Iger once said about Disney that they are creating stories about princesses, and that's okay. The princess today is very different than the princess 10 years ago. Like Elsa's different from Cinderella, but they're still in the business of stories about princesses. And so that's just kind of, we're in the business of sensorial soaps for Crest, of really efficacy in terms of cleanser for Noxema. And so the surrounding elements of that, whether it's like, again, the the clean claims or how we communicate, those are the different levers then that we can play with to bring that brand promise to life. But let's keep doing what we're like, why we're a heritage brand to begin with.
Yeah, yeah. So it's the same brand you love, same mission, same results, but yeah, a few updated for today's needs, updated for today's audiences. That's awesome.
Mhm.
When you think about how you get that message out to consumers, um, and I know your team is still kind of formulating, like Elida and your product portfolio, your new entity within Unilever. And so maybe like media benchmarks are still kind of like are being formulated. But can you talk a little bit about media touch points, and what are those what are those touch points that are just coming to the surface right now when you think about reaching the current generation of beauty buyers?
Yeah. Um, I think we did a social audit strategy refresh last year, and you know, there's so much beauty conversation happening on Instagram and TikTok. Those are just really powerful channels for beauty. And if you're not there, you don't have control over the narrative and what's happening. So we kind of identified those platforms early as channels for us where we needed to um, revive our presence a little bit more. Um, and I would say, you know, our brands are also, we don't spend a ton of money. We're not doing like massive TV relaunch. That's another way to modernize a brand or communicate. But we're more focused on, again, in beauty, because there's these existing channels where there's so much conversation. Um, how can we have more presence there and kind of be more relevant by at least being in those conversations?
So so you look at for the beauty aisle today, social is, would you call it like the foundational piece of your media strategy right now, or?
Yeah, digital and social. I think it's interesting because like 10 years ago, it was all about followers. So followers on Facebook, getting to 100,000 or 200,000. And then there was an era of like organic social is not worth it. Don't spend money on developing assets for organic social. And now I think our understanding of it is just different, where we have a whole digital ecosystem. It's your paid, of course, and your owned channels as well, and earned. But so your website, your social channels, your email, all of that is important to have presence. And it's not like you're investing there to get awareness on a Instagram post necessarily, but you're having at least a unified um, brand image and a little bit more like responsiveness and relevance in sort of this holistic digital ecosystem.
Mhm. So So it's not just about like paid touch points anymore. It's not just about like building up followers, just being a part of that conversation. Can you uh, maybe double click on that a little bit in terms of just how some of your products are participating in that conversation? You know, obviously, you know, beauty products are being talked about every day in social now. It does seem to be like a hot content category and a hot channel for the beauty aisle. Is it about tapping into influencers? Is it about like just seeing how your consumers are using the product and just kind of having a conversation with them? Like, what is it like to have that as sort of a foundational piece of your strategy?
Yeah. Well, I should say not much is live yet, so don't go to our like social channels and wonder what's going on yet. Um,
Fair.
but I think so. So one example is on Noxema. We found that there were sort of um, there was some negative content on Noxema, and we saw that actually people came and like defended the brand so strongly on their own. We didn't even do anything, but us having more like dedicated resources listening for those conversations, we can one be part of it, like have our own voice there, control the narrative a little bit more, and not just rely. It's great that people self-manage and defend us, but we can be there a little bit more intentionally too. Um, and then I think in terms of like the content that we push, it's we've tried to be more intentional about that type of content. So not just an influencer like holding a bottle, but how to use the product, tying into other interests or categories. I think that's more of the stuff that you'll start to see where hopefully it's more engaging, useful content and not just sort of product promotion, which wasn't getting much anyway.
Yeah, yeah. That's yeah, can't wait to see what you guys do in this space. And I love that you have a consumer base that's already you know, passionate and already defending you in social space. I mean, there's no better, right? Like there's no better message than having your consumers kind of speak up on their own. So that's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. It's good to see.
Um, uh, can you talk a little bit about just you know, your plans moving forward, and you know, when you think about kind of remixing these legacy brands for the future, like what does success look like? How do you think you'll know that a message is resonating with sort of today's beauty buyers?
Um, I mean, sales. There's so many things. I think, you know, with with heritage brands or legacy brands, I think you're often looking at where are the pockets, where is there some traction. So is it like certain cohorts of consumers or certain customers, or like let's find the green shoots wherever they are, um, and make them bigger and extend that. And so right now we're really pretty granular with what's our performance with certain retailers and how are we doing there. Then of course we look at penetration by cohort, brand equity with by cohort, again to of course we care about the total picture, but especially at this stage we need to, you know, ensure at least with certain segments we're gaining that traction and moving in the right direction with building our relevance.
That's great, and it's so exciting, I think, to be in a role like what you're in now. You're just, you know, going to be able to establish those benchmarks moving forward and just see how your plans are winning year over year with these sort of relaunches. It's very cool. Can you talk about you know, the role of retailers in brand modernization? How do you guys think about, you know, obviously you're doing so much on the brand side. what can your retail partners do in terms of helping to modernize some of these legacy brands?
Yeah, I mean that the physical availability is the most critical thing. It has to be visible on the shelf and there. And I think right now it's sort of a two-way thing of we need to give customers, retailers the confidence that we're supporting these brands in a different way. We're approaching it differently, and to give them the confidence that we're going to be successful and grow them. Um, and then hopefully that in return earns us better shelf placement and better presence in store. But I think we're really focused on that. We're going back to sort of our structure and some of those things we've been doing differently. The closeness of the team across sales and marketing is different because it's such a critical thing to make sure our physical presence, our in-store presence is there, and e-com as well, as such an important platform now. So really important. I think the first step is us building some of that confidence that we're on this journey and we're making progress and there's reason to believe in these brands again.
Yeah. Partnering with those retail customers is always important, and especially making sure they understand that you're remixing these and modernizing these brands. That's cool, and I think, like you said, it can go both ways. Full disclosure. Again, I sit within the retail media and data business unit of Kroger. But what we have found is that we as a retailer also have just a lot of great data that brands can use to just help understand who's buying the brands right now. What do these households look like? What else is in the basket? And retailers have this relationship with, in the case of Kroger, we have a relationship with 60 million households coast to coast. And so it's like, hey, how can we help all of our brand partners understand which of these households might be lapsed households, which households, based on their total purchase history, based on our longitudinal kind of view of what these households have been buying over time, which households might really be attracted to seeing these brands modernize. And kind of a little bit of that back and forth between retailers and brands is just so important. I think this modernization space.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting on a brand like Crest, for example. Crest has real strength with the Hispanic audience. And we hear from some customers that they want brands that help them better serve that cohort too. And so again, that like give and take and the marriage of insights from both sides, I think can help improve the shelf presence and ultimately the success of the brand.
Yeah. A win-win-win, right? Win for the consumers, win for the brand and the retailer. It's all good. Cool. Can you talk a little bit about, just again, thinking of how people shop today, like how are you guys thinking about e-commerce, direct to consumer, just new ways that people are shopping today? And how do these new shopping habits impact, how you think about modernizing these brands?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what's really important about e-commerce is it's where people are buying, but it's also part of that digital ecosystem. So right now our top priority is how do our brands show up? What's the content on sites? And it's very variable right now. We have different logos on different retailer sites. And so having that like uniformity of content and best in class content is really important, not just to get the sale on e-com, but also again, how your brand shows up and that sort of consistency. And then, breaking down the world of e-commerce, we're focused. So content is top priority. Then we're more focused on click and collect for our brands. They're lower price point brands. it's challenging to ship them and make the economics of that work out without sending people a lot of product. And so we're really focused on winning at click and collect as sort of a near term priority, but then certainly we have to keep figuring it out how we're going to get more of that growing behavior really as people are buying more online. But still, as we get there, again, this focus on content, I do think is really important.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Like having that consistency of message um, all the way down to the digital shelf is so important because yeah, consumers don't, they expect seamless shopping these days, right? So they want to go from, watching the video, seeing the great content out there in social, right into just a commerce experience. And so having that consistency so that they know that they're buying exactly what they saw is so important. And it should feel, like a continuous seamless experience to them. And
Mhm.
yeah, click and collect, pick up shopping, I think is really like, uh, it has remained the not the untold story, but sort of the downplayed story of the last few years. People have talked about the growth of e-commerce, um, and delivery is huge, but um, pickup shopping is ginormous.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's huge for our customer base, and yeah, and I can see why for your products, you'd want to really emphasize pickup, and I think it's a um, slightly different kind of tactics that you need to think about, because it is like you said, like an add-on um, product. Somebody might be adding into their basket, so there's a lot of great tactics you can be thinking about there.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, can you talk a little bit about, just Alida Beauty as you're just thinking about, again, it's your team is just about a year old. You're looking ahead, 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road. How do you see your team evolving? And, are you still going to be kind of a startup company in a few years, or what's in the future for you guys?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I we're so in the thick of it now with building, but I think um, we're really there's so much energy now because we're trying to build something new, and we want to show that these heritage brands can make a comeback. And so I think each of the brands in the portfolio is in a different stage, but to see the traction, I hope surely in 3 years we have some progress on that, and um, we see some of our brands with returned relevance in today's market. And I think so important is that within that is the processes we're building as in terms of how we function, and the team we have, and have that be a different model too, where we have again some of the great structure and fundamentals, but then also a new mindset, and how we're able to marry sort of the best of both worlds, hopefully.
Yeah, it's going to be so exciting to keep an eye on you guys and see what these brands look like a year from today and down the
Mhm.
road. Karen, coming out of Unilever and your career path, you said over 10 years at Unilever. Are there are there other brands in the Unilever portfolio that you've been maybe looking at for inspiration? Other brands that have been through a refresh or that have been through a modernization, um, where you feel like, oh, we might be able to kind of keep an eye on their playbook, or even just that's an end result that we'd love to see within your portfolio.
Hmm. I mean, we're looking more broadly at not just Unilever portfolio, but what are what are other brands doing that have made a comeback or are trying to make a comeback. I thought that, I don't know if you've seen the Folgers ad. It's like a long form video, but that was so interesting. A very different approach, but really cool. And I was super inspired by it. So that won't be the model we take for our brands, but I think we're always looking at outside category inspiration from smaller brands and bigger brands and heritage brands and modern day brands to kind of adapt what's going to work best for this mix of brands we have.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's exciting again to kind of see some of the nostalgia for some of these older brands right now. And yeah, certainly on the Kroger side, again, our brand has been around for 139 years. And so, we've been thinking a lot about, what our brand means to shoppers today. And we went through a big brand refresh a couple of years ago. And we're now sitting on our new tagline, fresh for everyone. And, I love it because it's like, it kind of anchors on food, right? And people associate Kroger with grocery and with food. But fresh for everyone can also mean a lot more than that, and it can be applied to skincare, right? My beauty routine has been refreshed. So we've been through a little bit of this journey of refreshing a legacy brand, and it's really energized our consumer base, our shopper base, and our associates too. It's exciting to see just internally people get re-energized and excited about our own brand. So I think that's something you guys will be able to look forward to as well.
Yeah, that's great.
When you think about just other teams out there that might be watching today, where they've got some classic brands that they're thinking about remixing or refreshing for today, like, are there any kind of just in the past year with this journey you've been on, any just little pieces of advice, any little nuggets you'd want to leave people with?
Yeah, I think I would say two things. One is embrace the heritage and understand that, and then move from there. Then pick your levers, but like embrace what you are. And then the second thing is what I was also saying before, like look for the green shoots, look for where there are the pockets of success, because you need them to understand what's working in market, and you also need them to motivate your team and show something is working and we can build from here. And that's equally important, honestly, to show that there's some success. So embrace the heritage and look for the green shoots.
I love that. Looking for those green shoots, those little moments of success, those little things you can point to. Yeah, and I do want to ask the audience if there are any questions out there. We're happy to take questions. And I see Emily's back on, so we probably need to wrap it up. But Karen, any other kind of final thoughts here about where you guys are headed, or anything else you want to share about what Elida has been up to?
I think we covered a lot of the main things. I guess the one thing I didn't talk about was purpose, and how today's consumers are looking for brands to stand for more. So we talked a little bit about like brand attributes, and even more so now it's going beyond that to your brand's take on culture and the world and purpose. And that can get so conflated and be disconnected from the brand. But it's something, again, we start with looking at our roots and our heritage and where we came from, and then like what role do we have to play in terms of having a bigger impact on the world as well. So but
I think that's what's great about heritage brands is like you've already got some credentials, right? Like you've stood the test of time, and it's clear what you stand for. But it's nice in this opportunity where you have in this position where you have the opportunity to sort of remix and refresh these brands as well. Karen, thank you so much. This has just been, I've learned a lot, and it's so great just hearing what what you guys are up to with refreshing some of these classic brands. And yeah, thanks for all of the tips and advice.